Why is a potentiometer preferred over a voltmeter for determining the EMF of a cell? At the balance point, the current drawn from the cell is 0. And if the current drawn from the cell is 0, then what we are measuring is the EMF of the cell and not its terminal potential difference. That is because the terminal potential difference V is given as E minus IR. This is the voltage drop due to the internal resistance of the cell. Now at balance point, the current drawn from the cell is 0. So I is 0, which means the terminal potential difference is equal to the EMF of the cell, and you are measuring the EMF of the cell. But when you are using a voltmeter, then you cannot measure the voltage across a cell unless some current flows through it. So what you actually measure is V is equal to IR, or you measure the terminal potential difference with a voltmeter. To answer the second part of the question, let's see how do we add up the two EMFs. To do that, let us just consider a point A here and B here, and let us traverse this circuit from A to B. Now as we move from A to B across the first cell E1, then you're moving from the positive terminal to the negative terminal. So it's like you're going downhill. So in that case, the EMF will be negative. So you have a negative sign with E1. Now for the second cell, let's say this point is C. When you move from C to B, once again you're moving from a positive terminal to a negative terminal, which means you're going downhill and you have a negative sign. Now this means that the total EMF of these two cells is E1 plus E2 with a negative sign. See, the negative sign over here doesn't matter because this means that these two cells are going to deliver current to the circuit in the opposite direction from what we have assumed. So the current is going to flow in this direction, because now if you traverse the loop in the opposite direction, say we traverse the loop in this direction as I've shown it with the red arrow, then for the first cell, which is from B to C, you would have E2, because then you're moving from the negative terminal to the positive terminal, which means you're going uphill and you have a positive sign. So this would be plus E2, and for the second cell also you would have plus E1, and the total EMF would have been E1 plus E2. So we can consider this as E1 plus E2. Now for the next case, let us consider a point A here, B here and C over here. As you move across the first cell, let's say we are traversing the loop in this direction from A to B. As you move across the first cell from A to the point C, you're moving downhill. You're going downhill, and downhill you have a negative sign with the EMF. So this is going to be negative sign with E1, and as you move from C to B, you are traversing this from the negative terminal to the positive terminal, which means this would be positive, which is plus E2. Once again, let's say we consider that we are moving across this in this direction. So for E2 you would have a negative sign, and for E1 you would have a positive sign. So this would be E1 minus E2. Now the two balance points are given for the EMFs. So you can write E1 plus E2 is proportional to 351 centimeter, and E1 minus E2 is proportional to 70.2 centimeter. Taking a ratio of these two lengths would give us the values of E1 and E2. Now let us take a look at a PN junction. Say this is an N-type material and this is a P-type material, and this is the junction at which they are joined together. On the N side there is a high concentration of electrons, and on the P side there is a high concentration of holes. Due to this difference in concentration, the electrons will diffuse across from the N side to the P side, where the electrons will combine with the holes. Now, due to this diffusion, positive ions are formed on the N side and negative ions are formed on the P side. So if you look at an N-type material has atoms in it which have free electrons. The material as such is neutral. Now, if this electron moves away, then the material is left with a positively charged ion. So on the N side you have positively charged ions, and on the P side you have negatively charged ions, and a layer like this is formed close to the junction. Now this region over here, which we've denoted by this region over here, which is depleted of free charges. Depleted would mean they've finished. They don't exist any longer. So this region over here, which is depleted of free charge carriers, is called the depletion region. Now let's look at the term barrier potential. See, on the N side we have a layer of positive charge, so we can say this is at a high potential, whereas on the N side we have a layer of negative charge, so we can say this is at a low potential, or you have a potential gradient, a fall in potential as you move from the N side to the P side. Now this potential difference is called a barrier potential. And why the word barrier? Barrier means it stops further diffusion. See, because now if you have electrons which try to cross the junction, you have a layer of negative charge which is going to repel them, which is going to prevent further diffusion of electrons to take place. So at equilibrium, when diffusion stops, we have this barrier potential difference VAB, which is positive on the N side and negative on the P side. When an element X is connected to an alternating voltage source and you're given that the current through it leads the voltage by pi by 2. So let's just take this as the current, because normally we take the current in the horizontal direction, and this says that the voltage lags the current by 90 degrees. So if the voltage lags the current by 90 degrees, this will be a capacitor. So you need to memorize this, and you can use some memory mnemonic, whatever is convenient for you. And a memory mnemonic which I use is, since my name is Leena, so I say VL and I lead, so I don't lag. So the voltage across the inductor leads the current by 90 degrees. Now you can make your own memory mnemonic, but you need to memorize this, that the voltage across the resistor is in phase with the current, the voltage across the capacitor lags the current by 90 degrees, and the voltage across the inductor L leads the current by 90. This is a 5-mark question. Now let us see how does the capacitance of a capacitor change for each of these cases. First of all, when a dielectric is filled, say the original capacitance of the capacitor is C0, which is an air-filled capacitor. Then on filling it with a dielectric, the new capacitance C, which is denoted by C1 over here, will be K times C0. On filling with a dielectric, the capacitance simply increases K times. You can think of these two as two capacitors which are joined in series. You have two capacitors over here, and these are joined in series with each other, and each of the capacitors has a distance of d by 2. Instead of d, now the distance between the plates is d by 2, and each of these capacitors are filled with dielectric K1 and K2. So this would be equivalent to a series combination of two capacitors with the distance between its plates as d by 2. Whereas the third case over here, you can think of this as two capacitors like this. See, if I would just shade this, then till here you have one capacitor, and then you have this as the next capacitor, and you can see that these two are connected together. So these two are connected in parallel. So which means you have two capacitors like this, and the two capacitors are connected in parallel. The distance between these plates of the capacitors is D in this case, but the area of these plates is half the original area. So the area of each of these plates is A by 2. We can draw a similar situation over here just to show that these two are in series. This is one capacitor, and this is the next capacitor that is joined in series with the first capacitor. So these are the two capacitors joined in series with each other, and these are the two capacitors which are joined in parallel with each other. We look at them one by one now. Now before we look at this combination, let us also look at another concept, that if you change the plate area and the distance between the plates, how does the capacitance change? See, the capacitance of a parallel plate is given by epsilon naught A over D. So if the distance between the plates is halved, then the new capacitance will be twice the old capacitance. Say I call this C old, then C old is epsilon naught A over D. Now if you change D to D by 2, C new will be twice C old. Whereas if you change A to A by 2, the new capacitance will be half the old capacitance. So coming back to this question over here, the second part, let's find the equivalent capacitance for this series combination of the two capacitors. Now C naught, let's say C naught is equal to epsilon naught A by D. So the capacitance of the first capacitor over here, I'm calling this C1 and C2. So the capacitance C1 is equal to epsilon naught, we have a dielectric constant K1 because it's going to increase K1 times, and the plate area has been halved, so the capacitance is going to be twice. So we have twice C naught, and C2 is also going to be K2 times twice C naught. So the total capacitance 1 by C is 1 over 2 C naught times K1 plus 1 over 2 C naught times K2, which works out to be 1 over 2 C naught, and then we have K1 K2, K1 plus K2, and this further gives us that C is equal to twice C naught K1 K2 over K1 plus K2. So now this new capacitance is equivalent to placing a dielectric of, let's say, K dash as twice K1 K2 by K1 plus K2. In the third case, we have, this is the third case. Over here, let us find the equivalent capacitance once again. In the third case, I'll once again take this as C1 and C2. This is C1 and this is C2. So C1 is equal to C naught once again is epsilon naught A by D. So C1 is equal to, since the plate area is halved, it's going to be 1 by 2, but the dielectric constant is increased. So this is, I think this is K3. So this is K3 times C naught, and C2 is going to be 1 by 2 K4 times C naught, and the equivalent capacitance, which for a parallel combination is C1 plus C2, which is half C naught K3 plus K4. So which means that the equivalent capacitance for this case, if I put this as K dash times C naught, so K dash over here will be K3 plus K4 over 2. Now finally I can write this C1 as K times C naught C2 as twice K1 K2 over K1 plus K2 times C0, and C3 as K3 plus K4 by 2 times C0. Now the question says that all these three capacitances are equal. So if all these three are equal, which means K would be equal to 2 K1 K2 by K1 plus K2, which is further equal to K3 plus K4 by 2. Now I have a quick question for you. Say you have a capacitor with a dielectric like this, and let me call this K5, K6, and let's say this is K7, and I want you to find out a similar equivalent value of dielectric constant, that means K related to K5, K6 and K7.